Hello, my fellow seekers of wisdom. Let's talk about something deeply personal yet incredibly universal. The heartbreak of feeling unappreciated by your own child. You've given your all, countless sleepless nights, endless sacrifices, and unwavering love, only to be met with silence, indifference, or even outright disrespect. It's not just hurtful, it shakes the very foundation of who you are as a parent. I know, it feels like a betrayal, doesn't it? You ask yourself, what went wrong? Was it something I did or didn't do? That quiet pain grows, turning into frustration, resentment, or even guilt. But here's the truth. This struggle isn't just about your child's behavior. It's about what their actions stir up in you. And that's where Stoicism becomes your lifeline. Today, we're diving into the timeless wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus to explore how you can rise above this pain. Through the lens of 7 profound lessons, we'll uncover how to reclaim your inner peace, stop relying on anyone else, yes, even your child, for emotional validation, and live with a serenity no one can take away from you. You might be thinking, 7 lessons? That's a lot. But trust me, each one is like a key, unlocking doors you didn't know were there. We'll talk about unmet expectations, emotional independence, and even the art of accepting what you can't control. By the end of this, you'll not only understand your pain, but also learn how to transform it into strength and peace. So, whether you're here out of curiosity or because you're desperate for answers, stay with me until the end. Together, we'll navigate this emotional storm and find the clarity and calm you deserve. If this is your first time here, welcome to Stoic with You, where we apply the teachings of the Stoics to life's toughest moments. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because this journey of self-discovery is better taken together. And if you've been here before, I want to hear from you. How has Stoic wisdom changed your perspective? Drop a comment below. Your story might inspire someone else to take their first step towards serenity. Let's begin. The title says it all. Why is a son ungrateful and disrespectful to his mother? But the answer, as you'll see, lies within you. 1. The poison of unmet expectations. It's a painful truth that much of the heartache parents feel comes not from their child's actions, but from the weight of expectations left unfulfilled. This pain is uniquely sharp because it touches something deeply personal, our identity as a parent. You've sacrificed so much, often without hesitation. Sleepless nights, financial strain, and years of emotional labor. It's natural to want acknowledgement, a simple thank you, or a heartfelt gesture of gratitude. But when these expectations aren't met, the disappointment can feel like a betrayal. There's a timeless Eastern saying, you will not truly understand your parents' hearts until you have children of your own. This proverb captures the depth of a parent's love and the often unseen sacrifices made for their children. Yet it also hints at a fundamental truth. Children may not fully grasp the extent of your efforts until they stand in your shoes. Expecting them to do so now may lead only to frustration and sorrow. This is where Stoicism offers profound insight. Seneca once wrote, "The greatest obstacle to living is expectation, which depends on tomorrow and wastes today." Think about that for a moment. Every time you build a mental image of how your child should act, how they should love, respect, or appreciate you, you're creating a fragile construct. And when reality doesn't align with that image, it shatters, leaving you in a state of hurt and disillusionment. Epictetus further sharpens this perspective with his teaching on the dichotomy of control. He reminds us that there are 2 realms in life, what we can control and what we cannot. Your child's behavior falls squarely in the latter. Their choices, feelings, and ways of expressing gratitude are shaped by their own experiences, priorities, and worldview. Clinging to the belief that their actions must meet your expectations is like trying to command the wind. It's an exercise in futility. Take Maria's story, for example. A devoted mother, she dreamed of her son visiting every weekend, sharing his life's joys and struggles with her. Yet, as he grew older, his priorities shifted. He poured his energy into his career, his partner, and his friends. Maria, left waiting for calls that rarely came, began to feel invisible and unloved. Each unmet expectation deepened her wounds, turning her love into resentment. But Maria chose to confront this pain through reflection. She realized that her suffering wasn't caused by her son's actions, but by the rigid expectations she had placed upon him. By releasing those expectations, Maria found a new sense of peace. She stopped waiting for her son to fulfill a script he didn't know existed, and instead focused on what she could control: her own ability to enjoy the present and value herself. Letting go of expectations doesn't mean abandoning hope or accepting disrespect. It means freeing yourself from the emotional chains that keep you tied to a fantasy of how things should be. Your child's love and gratitude might not come in the form you imagined, but that doesn't mean they aren't there. Sometimes their care is expressed in subtle, quiet ways we overlook when we're fixated on grand gestures. Marcus Aurelius reminds us of the liberating power of acceptance. Do not let what you cannot control steal your peace. This is the heart of the matter. You can't dictate how your child expresses love or gratitude, but you can control how much power you give those expectations over your emotional well-being. So ask yourself, how much of your pain stems from the idea that your child owes you something in return for your sacrifices? Is it possible to release that notion and instead find joy in the simple fact that you gave your best as a parent? The freedom lies in shifting your focus from what you're missing to what you already have. In releasing unmet expectations, you open the door to a calmer, more balanced relationship. Love becomes less about transactions and more about presence. And perhaps, as the Eastern wisdom suggests, your child may one day come to understand the depth of your love. But even if they don't, your peace will no longer hinge on their recognition. It will be rooted in the serenity of knowing that you did all you could, and that is enough. 2. When love becomes emotional debt. Love is a force so pure and unconditional that it often defies logic. From the moment your child is born, you give without question your time, energy, dreams, and even your health. Yet over time, this boundless love can unknowingly transform into something far less noble: emotional debt. This occurs when love and sacrifice come with unspoken expectations of repayment, creating a transactional dynamic that fosters resentment rather than connection. There's a saying, if you live long enough, everything becomes easier. It reminds us that time and perspective can untangle even the most complicated feelings. But when love is tainted with expectation, the passage of time often deepens wounds rather than heals them. Consider this. You might feel your sacrifices as a parent deserve a return: respect, gratitude, or even care in your old age. After all, you've given everything. Isn't it fair to expect something back? While this seems reasonable, it creates a hidden contract. When the return doesn't come in the way you imagined, the balance tips and disappointment sets in. This is where Stoic philosophy offers a liberating perspective. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do good willingly and without expecting any reward." Love, according to Stoicism, should be given freely, not as a trade for recognition or gratitude. When love becomes conditional, it ceases to be love in its purest form. Instead, it becomes a burden, an invisible chain that binds your child and yourself in an unhealthy cycle. Take Rosa's story. A devoted mother, Rosa sacrificed her personal dreams to ensure her children had every opportunity. She imagined her eldest son, Pedro, would one day reciprocate by visiting often, offering support and involving her in his life. But Pedro, focused on his career and his own family, drifted apart. Rosa's growing resentment manifested in subtle remarks, a cold tone, and an air of disappointment. Pedro, in turn, began avoiding her altogether, overwhelmed by the weight of expectations he never agreed to bear. What Rosa didn't realize was that her sacrifices, though born out of love, had turned into emotional debt. This unspoken burden had made Pedro feel trapped rather than loved. Stoic wisdom teaches us to act according to our values: compassion, care, and generosity, but without depending on how others respond. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the power to live as you wish." When we place our happiness in someone else's hands, be it our child or anyone else, we surrender that freedom. The solution lies in reclaiming it. Instead of expecting your child to repay you for your sacrifices, recognize that your choices were yours alone. You chose to give because it aligned with your values. This realization frees you from resentment and empowers you to love without conditions. Breaking this cycle isn't easy, but it's transformative. Start by reflecting on where your feelings of disappointment stem from. Are they tied to unmet expectations? Did you envision a specific future where your child played a particular role in your life? Acknowledge those feelings without judgment and then work on releasing them. Rosa eventually found peace by shifting her perspective. She stopped measuring her son's love by the frequency of his visits or the warmth of his words. Instead, she focused on moments of joy they shared, no matter how small, and on the fulfillment she found in her own life. Her change in attitude softened the tension between them, allowing Pedro to reconnect without the shadow of obligation. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. If you choose to see your sacrifices not as debts to be repaid, but as gifts freely given, you'll find that your heart feels lighter. Love, in its truest form, is not a transaction. It's a gift offered without strings. By releasing expectations, you create space for a deeper, more authentic connection. And in doing so, you regain something even more valuable than your child's gratitude. You regain your own peace. 3. The root of disrespect lies in the lack of boundaries. Disrespect in any relationship, especially between a parent and child, is a wound that cuts deep. It often feels personal, a denial of all the love, care, and sacrifices you've given. But what if the root of this disrespect isn't malice or ingratitude, but something more subtle? A lack of clear boundaries. Boundaries, or the absence of them, play a critical role in shaping relationships, and this is no different in the bond between a parent and a child. From the moment your child is born, your instinct to protect and nurture takes over. You give everything: time, resources, and emotional energy, freely, often at the expense of your own needs. In doing so, you may unintentionally send a message: I'll always give, no matter what. Over time, this unspoken promise can set a precedent where your child takes your sacrifices for granted, not out of malice, but because they've never learned to expect otherwise. Marcus Aurelius captured this dynamic with profound simplicity. Love everyone, but trust only the few who deserve it. While love is unconditional, respect must be cultivated. Boundaries are the foundation of mutual respect, serving as a reminder that while love is freely given, it is not without limits. Consider Carmen's story. A loving mother, she made herself available to her son at all times. If he needed money, she provided it. If he needed help, she dropped everything to assist him. Even when he arrived unannounced late at night, she welcomed him with open arms. In her mind, she was building trust and closeness. But over time, her son began to assume her help was automatic, a duty, not a choice. When, after years of giving, Carmen finally said no to one of his requests, her son reacted with anger, feeling as though she had betrayed him. What had happened? Carmen had never established boundaries, and in doing so, had unintentionally taught her son to expect unlimited support. When she tried to assert herself, he interpreted it as rejection rather than a natural assertion of her needs. This is where Stoic philosophy provides guidance. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Setting boundaries, while uncomfortable at first, is not an act of rejection or selfishness. It's an act of self-respect. It's about recognizing your own needs and teaching others, even your children, to respect them. Boundaries not only protect your emotional well-being, but also teach your child an important lesson: that love and support should be valued, not taken for granted. Without boundaries, children may unconsciously develop a sense of entitlement, believing their parents' sacrifices are simply a given. This entitlement, left unchecked, often manifests as disrespect. Establishing boundaries requires courage and clarity. Start small. Reflect on the moments when you felt stretched too thin or taken for granted. Were there times you said yes when you wanted to say no? Identify these patterns and consider how you can assert your limits without guilt. Communicate your boundaries with love and firmness. For instance, if your child frequently expects you to solve their problems without contributing effort, set a boundary by saying, "I'm here to support you, but I also need you to take responsibility for your actions." This doesn't diminish your love, it strengthens your relationship by fostering accountability and respect. Boundaries also benefit you by freeing your emotional energy for what truly matters. Marcus Aurelius taught the importance of self-governance. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Setting boundaries is a way to exercise this power. By defining what you will and won't tolerate, you regain control over your emotional life and prevent resentment from building. The process of boundary setting is not without its challenges. Your child may resist or misinterpret your actions at first, especially if they're used to unlimited support. But over time, clear and consistent boundaries will create a healthier, more balanced relationship. They'll learn to value your time and sacrifices because they'll understand they're not infinite. In the end, respect is rooted in balance, love paired with limits, care coupled with self-respect. Boundaries remind your child that while your love is unconditional, your resources and energy are not. As Epictetus wisely stated, freedom is the ability to live as you wish. By setting boundaries, you model this freedom for your child and reclaim it for yourself. So, remember, disrespect often grows where boundaries are absent. By defining your limits with compassion and firmness, you're not only preserving your well-being, but also teaching your child one of life's most valuable lessons. Love is best expressed and received within the framework of mutual respect. 4. Stop seeking recognition from those who can't give it. Few things wound the heart more deeply than feeling unacknowledged by someone you've given everything to, especially your child. You've spent years, possibly decades, sacrificing and loving unconditionally, hoping that one day they'll see and appreciate all you've done. But what happens when that recognition never comes? Or worse, when it feels as if your efforts are invisible? This longing for acknowledgement is deeply human. After all, we want to know that our sacrifices meant something. But Stoic philosophy teaches us a profound truth. The validation we seek from others is often beyond their ability or willingness to give. Epictetus reminds us, we cannot demand that others have the same priorities or perspectives as we do. This lesson is both liberating and challenging. Why might your child not acknowledge your efforts? It's not always a matter of love or lack thereof. Sometimes they may simply lack the emotional maturity to see beyond their own world. Other times, they may view your sacrifices as just what parents do, unaware of the depth of effort behind them. Their inability to recognize your contributions doesn't necessarily mean they don't care. It may reflect their limited perspective or preoccupations with their own lives. Take Teresa's story, for instance. A devoted mother, she worked tirelessly to pay for her daughter Sarah's college tuition, cared for her grandchildren, and was always available in emergencies. Yet Sarah rarely said thank you or acknowledged her mother's sacrifices. Each unspoken word of gratitude deepened Teresa's pain, making her feel invisible and unappreciated. Over time, this led to resentment that further strained their relationship. Teresa's story is not unique, and it highlights a key teaching of Stoicism. We must recognize our own value without relying on external validation. Marcus Aurelius offers a powerful reminder. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. This means that your worth is not diminished because someone else fails to see it. The most important recognition you can receive is your own. Here's the hard truth. Seeking recognition from someone who cannot or will not give it is a recipe for pain. Instead of waiting for their acknowledgement, turn inward. Reflect on the sacrifices you've made and find pride in the fact that you acted out of love and integrity. You did what was right, not because you expected something in return, but because it aligned with your values as a parent. This doesn't mean suppressing your feelings. It's natural to feel hurt when your efforts go unnoticed. But instead of allowing that hurt to define you, use it as an opportunity to grow. Ask yourself, why does their recognition matter so much to me? Am I allowing their actions to control my emotional state? The answer lies in emotional independence. By learning to validate yourself, you take back the power you've given others over your sense of worth. Epictetus reminds us, no one is free who is not master of themselves. When you stop tying your emotional well-being to your child's actions or lack thereof, you regain control of your peace. This shift in perspective can transform your relationship. When Teresa stopped seeking recognition from Sarah, she found a surprising sense of relief. She realized that her sacrifices were valuable, regardless of whether Sarah acknowledged them. By focusing on her own well-being and letting go of unmet expectations, Teresa released the resentment that had been poisoning their bond. Over time, This created space for a healthier, more genuine connection. It's important to understand that letting go of the need for recognition doesn't mean resigning yourself to a distant or cold relationship. It means freeing yourself from the emotional burden of waiting for something that may never come. And sometimes, when you release that pressure, you'll find that the acknowledgement you once craved begins to appear naturally. Seneca captures this wisdom perfectly. A wise man is content with doing what is right without needing a reward. This doesn't mean you stop caring about your child. It means you stop allowing their recognition to dictate your sense of value. In practice, this means reframing how you view your sacrifices. Instead of seeing them as investments waiting for a return, view them as acts of love that need no repayment. When you adopt this mindset, you release yourself from the cycle of disappointment and open the door to a deeper peace. Ultimately, the recognition that matters most is the kind you give yourself. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, choose not to be harmed, and you won't be. By choosing to let go of the need for acknowledgement, you free yourself to live with serenity. And in doing so, you set an example for your child, a model of strength, grace, and self-assured love that speaks louder than any words of gratitude ever could. Emotional independence is your greatest strength. In every relationship, but especially the one between a parent and child, emotional dependence can be both comforting and dangerous. As a parent, you've likely tied a part of your happiness to your child, feeling elated when they succeed and heartbroken when they seem distant or dismissive. While this emotional connection is natural, Stoic philosophy teaches that tying your well-being to someone else's actions is a recipe for unnecessary pain. True freedom comes from emotional independence, the ability to maintain your peace regardless of external circumstances. Epictetus said it best, "No one is free who is not master of themselves." This statement underscores the essence of emotional independence. It's not about detachment or coldness, but about reclaiming control over your emotional state. When your happiness depends on how others treat you, whether your child calls, visits, or shows appreciation, you place your inner peace in their hands. And when they fail to meet your expectations, your peace is shattered. This dependency often stems from a common belief. If I've sacrificed so much, shouldn't I receive something in return? While this feeling is deeply human, it overlooks a crucial truth of Stoic thought. Other people's actions are beyond your control. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. In other words, your child's choices, whether they acknowledge your efforts, spend time with you, or express gratitude, are outside your sphere of influence. What you can control is your reaction to those choices. Consider a scenario where your child fails to call on your birthday. It stings, doesn't it? You may feel forgotten, undervalued, or unloved. But pause for a moment. Is your worth truly diminished because of one missed call? Or is the pain amplified by the expectations you've placed on that moment? Stoicism invites you to shift your perspective. Instead of allowing external actions to dictate your emotions, turn inward. Ask yourself, why does their action or lack of action hold so much power over me? What can I do to reclaim my peace? Emotional independence is not about ignoring your feelings. It's about acknowledging them, understanding their source, and choosing not to let them control you. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, choose not to be harmed, and you won't be. This doesn't mean you won't feel hurt, but it does mean you can decide how much power that hurt has over your life. A powerful example of emotional independence comes from Maria, a mother who once centered her entire emotional world around her son. When he moved to another city and became preoccupied with his career, Maria found herself spiraling into sadness and resentment. She constantly checked her phone for messages that rarely came and felt a profound sense of loss. But through reflection, Maria realized something vital. Her happiness had become tied to her son's actions. By relying on him for validation and emotional fulfillment, she had unknowingly surrendered her inner peace. Inspired by Stoic teachings, Maria began to reclaim her independence. She started focusing on her own well-being, rediscovering hobbies, nurturing friendships, and practicing mindfulness. This shift didn't mean Maria stopped loving her son. On the contrary, it allowed her to love him more freely, without the weight of unmet expectations. By letting go of her emotional dependence, Maria found a newfound sense of peace. Practical steps to build emotional independence. Practice presence. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the greatest obstacle to living is expectation, which depends on tomorrow and wastes today. Instead of waiting for your child's actions to bring you happiness, focus on the present moment. Find joy in the things you can control, whether it's a walk in nature, a good book, or a moment of quiet reflection. Reframe your thoughts. When feelings of disappointment arise, challenge them. Instead of thinking, they don't care about me, remind yourself, their actions don't define my worth. Shifting your internal dialogue helps you reclaim control over your emotions. Cultivate inner strength. Dedicate time to nurturing your own well-being. This could mean meditating, journaling, exercising, or pursuing a hobby. The more fulfilled you feel within yourself, the less reliant you'll be on external validation. Focus on what you can control. Epictetus emphasized the dichotomy of control. You cannot change others, but you can change your response to them. Redirect your energy toward what you can influence, your thoughts, actions, and priorities. Emotional independence doesn't mean shutting people out. It's about loving them from a place of strength, rather than dependence. When you're no longer tied to the emotional highs and lows of another's actions, your relationships become healthier and more balanced. Marcus Aurelius beautifully summed it up. The soul is dyed with the color of its thoughts. By choosing thoughts rooted in peace and self-assurance, you color your life with serenity and strength. In the end, emotional independence is the foundation of true freedom. It allows you to love without fear, live without resentment, and embrace life on your own terms. It's not about controlling others, it's about mastering yourself. And that is the greatest strength of all. 6. The art of accepting what you cannot change. One of life's hardest lessons is accepting that despite our best efforts, some things remain beyond our control. As a parent, this realization can be particularly painful. You pour your heart into raising your child, guiding them, protecting them, and hoping for their happiness. But as they grow, they chart their own path, one that may diverge sharply from your hopes, values, or expectations. The instinct to correct, protect, or intervene is powerful, but Stoic philosophy teaches that peace comes not from trying to control the uncontrollable, but from learning to let go. Epictetus emphasized this point with his principle of the dichotomy of control. There are things which are within our power, and there are things which are beyond our power. Your child's choices, their thoughts, and their behavior all fall into the latter category. No amount of love or guidance can guarantee that they'll follow the path you envisioned. This doesn't mean your efforts as a parent were in vain. It simply means their life is theirs to live, not yours to control. Marcus Aurelius put it beautifully. Love what has been given to you by fate. In the context of parenting, this means embracing your child as they are, not as you wish them to be. It's not about agreeing with all their decisions, but about recognizing that their journey is uniquely theirs, shaped by their own experiences, struggles, and desires. Imagine a storm at sea. You're in a small boat, navigating through high winds and crashing waves. You can't control the storm. That's nature's domain. But you can control how you steer your boat, adjusting your sails and staying as steady as possible. Life, and parenting in particular, often feels like this. Trying to fight the storm only exhausts you. Accepting it allows you to navigate with greater calm. Take the story of Daniel and his mother, Clara. Clara had high hopes for her son, dreams of him becoming a doctor, settling down with a family, and living a stable, respectable life. But Daniel chose a different path, pursuing an unconventional career in art and moving far from home. Clara initially struggled with his choices, feeling disappointed and even betrayed. She questioned herself, what did I do wrong? Over time, however, Clara began to embrace the Stoic practice of amor fati, the love of fate. She realized that while she couldn't control Daniel's decisions, she could control how she responded to them. Instead of lamenting what she couldn't change, she chose to support Daniel in his pursuits, finding joy in his happiness even if it didn't align with her original vision. This shift in perspective brought Clara a profound sense of peace. By letting go of her desire to shape Daniel's life, she found more energy to focus on her own growth, passions, and well-being. Their relationship improved as well, as Clara's acceptance allowed Daniel to feel her love without the weight of her expectations. Acceptance doesn't mean resignation or passivity. It's an active process of shifting your focus. Instead of wasting energy on what's beyond your control, invest it in what you can influence: your thoughts, actions, and emotional well-being. This is the essence of Stoic acceptance. Here are practical steps to cultivate this mindset. Practice premeditation of adversity. The Stoics encourage preparing mentally for challenges. Reflect on the possibility that your child may not make the choices you hoped for. This isn't about dwelling on negativity, but about strengthening your ability to respond calmly if those situations arise. Focus on the present. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present." Instead of worrying about your child's future, focus on the moments you share today. Reframe your role. Your job as a parent isn't to control your child, but to guide them. If they choose a different path, it doesn't negate the love and effort you've poured into raising them. Reframe success not as compliance with your vision, but as their ability to navigate life independently. Release guilt. Parents often carry guilt, questioning if they could have done something differently. Epictetus reminds us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Let go of the past. You did the best you could with the knowledge and resources you had at the time. Find peace in acceptance. Acceptance doesn't mean giving up on your child. It means acknowledging their autonomy and focusing on the aspects of your relationship you can nurture: love, respect, and support. Acceptance is not an easy practice, but it's a liberating one. It allows you to step back, breathe, and trust that your child's journey is unfolding as it's meant to. As Marcus Aurelius wisely observed, the universe is change, life is opinion. Embrace this change and let go of the opinions that bind you to pain. By mastering the art of accepting what you cannot change, you protect your inner peace and open the door to a more genuine, expectation-free relationship with your child. You can't control the storm, but you can choose how to steer your boat, and that choice makes all the difference. 7. Choose serenity over resentment. In the face of unappreciation or perceived indifference from a loved one, especially a child, resentment can creep in almost naturally. It's a reaction to the emotional pain of feeling ignored, undervalued, or misunderstood. But resentment, while understandable, is a heavy burden. It poisons your peace of mind, strains your relationships, and often achieves the opposite of what you hope for. Stoicism teaches us that there is a better way: to choose serenity over resentment. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't be." This profound insight reminds us that emotional suffering doesn't come from others' actions, but from how we interpret and react to those actions. Resentment doesn't arise because of what someone does to us. It stems from our own unmet expectations and unresolved pain. Resentment is a slow-building storm. Every missed phone call, dismissive comment, or lack of gratitude adds another layer to the dark clouds. Over time, these small slights can turn into a torrent of frustration, bitterness, and hurt. But here's the key. This storm doesn't harm the person you resent, it harms you. It steals your inner peace and keeps you locked in a cycle of emotional turmoil. The Stoics offer a path to escape this storm: intentional serenity. Epictetus advises, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. When you let go of resentment, you're not excusing poor behavior or giving up on your relationship. Instead, you're reclaiming control over your emotional state. Take Sophia's story, for example. As a mother, she had given everything to her two sons, raising them with love and care despite financial and personal challenges. Yet as adults, her sons rarely visited or called, and Sophia felt increasingly isolated. Her hurt turned into anger, which she expressed in subtle, biting remarks during their infrequent visits. This only pushed her sons further away, creating a vicious cycle of distance and resentment. One day, Sophia decided to break the cycle. Inspired by Stoic philosophy, she realized that her resentment was not solving the problem, it was deepening it. She began to focus on what she could control: her thoughts and actions. Instead of dwelling on what her sons weren't doing, she chose to cherish the moments they did share, however rare. Sophia also practiced a powerful Stoic exercise: negative visualization. She imagined a reality where her sons never visited or called. While painful at first, this exercise helped her prepare emotionally for the possibility and freed her from constantly waiting for something that might not happen. Paradoxically, when she stopped pressuring them for connection, her sons began to reach out more frequently. Choosing serenity over resentment doesn't mean ignoring your feelings or tolerating mistreatment. It means recognizing that your happiness doesn't have to depend on someone else's behavior. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. By choosing thoughts rooted in peace and self-acceptance, you create a foundation of resilience that no external circumstance can shake. Here are practical steps to help you cultivate serenity. Identify and acknowledge resentment. Reflect on where your resentment comes from. Are there unmet expectations or unresolved wounds fueling it? Understanding the source is the first step toward letting it go. Practice gratitude. Shift your focus to what you have rather than what you lack. Even in strained relationships, there are moments of connection or kindness to appreciate. Gratitude helps replace resentment with a sense of abundance. Reframe your expectations. Ask yourself, am I expecting something they are not capable of giving? Adjusting your expectations doesn't mean settling for less, but aligning them with reality. Engage in self-care. Invest in activities that nurture your emotional well-being. Whether it's journaling, meditating, or spending time in nature, prioritize your own peace. Release the need for control. Accept that you cannot change others' actions or feelings. What you can control is your response. As Epictetus teaches, freedom comes from focusing on what lies within your power. Resentment often feels like a form of justice, a way to hold someone accountable for their perceived wrongs. But in reality, it binds you more than it does them. By choosing serenity, you're not surrendering, you're taking back your power. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." In this context, the enemy isn't your child, it's the resentment itself. By refusing to let bitterness dictate your actions, you free yourself to live with grace and dignity. Ultimately, choosing serenity over resentment transforms your relationship with both yourself and your child. It allows you to approach them from a place of love, not obligation or frustration. And even if their behavior doesn't change, your peace of mind will no longer be at their mercy. In the end, serenity is not a gift from others. It's a gift you give yourself. And when you embrace it, you set an example of emotional strength and wisdom that may inspire those around you to do the same. So we've just journeyed through 7 profound lessons drawn from the wisdom of Stoic philosophy. Each one offers a path to greater peace and resilience as you navigate the emotional challenges of parenting, particularly when facing feelings of unappreciation or misunderstanding. From letting go of unmet expectations to reclaiming emotional independence, to choosing serenity over resentment, these teachings remind us that while we can't control others, including our children, we can always control how we respond. The true power of Stoicism lies in its practicality. It doesn't ask us to suppress our emotions or deny our pain. Instead, it encourages us to shift our focus inward, where we have the most control. By doing so, we free ourselves from the burdens of external validation, unrealistic expectations, and emotional dependence. We learn to live more fully, love more freely, and accept life as it is, not as we wish it to be. Remember, your happiness and peace are not dictated by how others treat you. They are shaped by the quality of your thoughts and the choices you make. As Marcus Aurelius wisely said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. As you reflect on these lessons, ask yourself, what step can I take today to reclaim my peace? Whether it's releasing a long-held expectation, setting a healthy boundary, or simply choosing to focus on the present moment, even the smallest shift can bring profound change. If this journey has resonated with you, take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments. What lesson stood out to you the most? How will you apply Stoic wisdom to your own life? And if you found value in these reflections, don't forget to share this message with others who might need it. Sometimes a single idea can spark a transformation. Your peace, your happiness, your emotional freedom, they're within your reach. You've taken an important step today by reflecting on these truths. Keep going. The path to serenity is not always easy, but it's one worth walking. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and until next time, may you find the strength to live with wisdom, courage, and grace.